Burnout. In an academic setting, burnout is a state of mental exhaustion, often caused by prolonged stress. Now, everyone watching this has probably experienced it, and some of you may even agree with me when I say that experiencing burnout as a student is one of the worst feelings imaginable. It's as if your brain is running on low power mode while school demands its full charge. And believe me, I have a lot of experience with this as a student of the IB. Internal assessments, cash reflections, the 4,000 word extended essay, and the worst of all, theory of knowledge. At a point, it feels like the IB isn't even a curriculum and rather a parody of the Hunger Games, but instead of arrows flying at you, it's deadlines. But, of course, this feeling isn't limited to just the IB. It is something every student in every classroom, every school, every curriculum can relate to. Now, you're probably wondering where all this is coming from. Well, hello. My name is Pranav Chalasani, and as mentioned before, I'm a student in the IB Diploma program, which basically means that I've had my fair share of stress, last-minute submissions, and late nights. So much so that I think from all the coffee I drink on a daily basis, my heart deserves a diploma as well. But I'm not here to complain, I promise. What I really want to talk about is how schools have unintentionally created the ideal climate for burnout. Because, I mean, think about it. Everything about the school system is designed to overwhelm students. Because, well, when it was designed, it wasn't designed to accommodate for one's mental health now, was it? Schools are a design of efficiency, early starts, rigid schedules, harsh grading systems, and detention as a punishment if you fail to meet these circumstances. I will say that the educational system, over the years, we have seen many changes in it. New technologies, new methods of assessment, new curriculums. Education, as a whole, has evolved along with the people who seek it. Yet what remains unyielding are schools themselves. Because, sure, they can get a new layer of paint every now and then, maybe they'll even digitalize their textbooks. But that one mindset, that one structure, that one rhythm has never changed. And to be fair, this rhythm isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it teaches us responsibility, discipline, time management, skills that are necessary in life. But when a school refuses to adapt according to a student's needs, learning transforms into pressure. This is when the system turns against itself and, ironically enough, creates its own inefficiencies. This is where the problem begins. When pressure becomes the baseline for education, students stop learning to understand and instead to survive. The human impulse to learn turns into an obligation, and school becomes a place of performance, where you flaunt your workload. Curiosity fades, and this is when burnout creeps in. This is a sign that schools need to change, they need to evolve. Because if you really think about it, they already have everything a student needs. They have resources, teachers, facilities, and they have a goal, a shared goal to educate. The only thing that is missing is balance, the balance between challenging and caring for a student. But how can we, alike students, teachers, schools, how can we create this balance? Well, for starters, schools can transform their environment to one that celebrates growth instead of perfection, because not every assessment determines a student's worth, and not every mistake should be punished. Schools need to learn to adapt, because humans, we learn from our own mistakes. We build understanding through the errors that we make, not through memorizing our notes. Another small but impactful difference is the offerance of flexibility. Not every student processes information the same way, so let them explore and learn for themselves how they understand. Give them time, give them space, because not every student is going to be peaking at 7:45 in the morning, right? So schools have to adapt to allow choice, to allow freedom, flexible deadlines, subject changes, even mental health days, just to remind students that they are not machines. And teachers, the most valuable asset of a school. If a teacher can simply ask why a student's performance is dropping instead of assuming laziness, this tiny bit of empathy can mean all the difference. Because sometimes all a student really needs is understanding, not lectures and criticism. Now, it's easy to point fingers at the school system. But what we often forget is that we as students, we have a responsibility as well. Modern society has pushed us to glorify the appearance of looking busy when all we really need to do is value our own limits. A school's changes will only be recognized when its students discard the mindset that rest is unproductivity and productivity is recognized as a personality. Now, I know I've spoken a lot about burnout over the last few minutes, and believe me, I really did not want to sound like a motivational poster by the end of this, but I do want you guys to take home one thing. Being burnt out doesn't mean that you're weak or lazy or incapable. Sometimes it's just your brain's way of telling you, you are doing too much. You need to rest. And schools, they have the capability to change this mindset of a student because they can remind us that education isn't supposed to drain us, but shape us. Now, change doesn't always start big. It can start small. I remember a few months ago, the night before my end of semester exams, it was 4 a.m. I had been awake all night memorizing everything I could possibly need to know for the exam. Then suddenly my dad walked into the room. He was awoken by the unreasonably loud music I was playing, but he didn't yell or shout, or he didn't lecture me. Instead, he calmly told me, "You should rest. You're going to need it tomorrow." And I laughed. Can you believe that? I laughed at the mention of rest. And this is when I realized the true definition of burnout. When you forget that rest is an option. So maybe the real goal isn't to make schools less demanding, but instead to make them more humane. Because with rest comes balance. And with balance, we can bring the best out of ourselves. Thank you.